For me, it started with some really great teachers. Um, I remember specifically, I was in an accelerated program in early elementary school, and the teacher there, we read books and did the book reports and those regular sorts of things, but we also got introduced to plays and poetry and and encouraged to write that way. So that's when I was really introduced. And then I had a fifth grade teacher named Miss Bain that for some reason I felt very safe with her. And I was still writing and I would show her my work. And she was so encouraging and asked me to show her everything I wrote. And um, it just felt so good. And it felt uh, it's safe and wonderful. And it encouraged me to keep writing. I think that encouragement as a young person is a very important thing. I really think another great teacher, I had creative writing classes with David Cope at Grand Rapids Community College when I was in my mid 20s. I took 2 years of that with him, and then we did an independent study to work on putting together a manuscript. Um, I feel like I read very voraciously when I was like 16 to 18. And I found I had to write a paper, 15 pages on an author's style. And I had found Leonard Cohen and fell in love. But my teacher was like, you're going to find more about his music than his writing. So she's like, have you ever heard of Jack Kerouac? And I was like, no. And then all of a sudden, it was like I read about Kerouac, and you go to Ginsberg and Snyder and Corso and Ferlinghetti, and then you get to, all of their influences, and it just keeps knocking open all these doors. And I really connected to that form, basically. And when I was in my early 20s, I started to write myself. And I started with strangers I would see, and for some reason something about them would strike me, or conversations I would have with strangers, and something struck me, and I couldn't put my finger on it exactly. So I would get home and I would write, and I'd bring it back to these creative writing classes, and Dave talked to me about taking it away from abstraction and trying to make it something that a reader could grasp onto. And I would take them home and write out everything I could remember about the situation. And then it was definitely not first thought, best thought for me. I edit like crazy. I would edit and take out words that I thought weren't necessary to try to find even what I was looking for, because sometimes I didn't know. And circle words that didn't have quite the right nuance or connotation, but come back to it and find the word that crystallized it for me. And there's something very, very peaceful in that, the editing process. Writing it all out and then the editing process. And sometimes it surprised me what it was that struck me. Like, I didn't completely know when I was witnessing it, but for some reason it became part of me. And it kind of crystallized a feeling that I might not have even known was there. And I found that I was able to learn to empathize with other people, see things from other perspectives, and eventually take that and be able to apply it to personal experience as well. So, same thing. When I write, I try to be very honest, and I hope that resonates with other people, and the power in really sharing yourself and your experiences, and possibly letting other people see things from different perspectives, and maybe relate, or maybe learn about empathy. And those things really felt powerful to me. I feel like my writing is very straightforward and pretty simplistic, and that I don't write for a specific audience. It almost feels like it could be accessible to anyone. It's not flowery, and there's nothing I'm trying to push down or kind of glaze over with romantic language. Um, I write for the everyman, I guess. David Cope. Yeah. He he saw something in my work before I saw that something was there, and kind of guided me on how to hone in to it. He had so much faith in my ability, and still to this day encourages me and supports me and helps me. We've become very dear friends along the way because we've been working together for 16 years, probably. So, and his work is just gorgeous. And I really like how his early work is kind of in the vein where you see the everyman, and then it matures as you read through the rest of his books. Well, the first one I was involved in, I think I was in 6th grade, and I won a 2 liter of pop for a poem about Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So I almost forgot about that one, but that one was important. Can
you share the poem?
I don't have it anymore, but that was the theme, Martin Luther King Day. I got published in this little newsletter everybody got, and I got a 2 liter of pop of my choice. So, but in 2006, this is when I was a student of David's, he put together what he called the Genius Women Poets reading at the library at the community college, and he selected students from his creative writing classes, and we all did a reading. It was a packed house. I had never done a reading. I was absolutely terrified, like visibly shaking, terrified, but I wanted to be a part of it. So once I got over my own nerves, I was able to really sit back and enjoy the rest of the readers. And it was hilarious. It was wild. It was some incredibly honest poetry about motherhood. Like it was an amazing experience. That was in 2006. And another one happened just a couple years later in 2008. It was a tribute to the Beats at Wealthy Street Theater, and that was organized by Greg Bliss. There was live painting on stage while all of the readings were going on, which I thought was beautiful. But there are several readers that could read any of the beats that they wanted to, and there was a saxophone player at one point, and it was wonderful. But Dave got up and read some Ginsberg, and then I joined him on stage and read Ginsberg, A Supermarket in California, which is one. I think that one's really fun, and he mentions Walt Whitman at the end. Walt Whitman was a very big influence on Ginsberg, and after I joined Dave and read, we both took out Leaves of Grass and read sections back and forth together, and that it felt like a lineage to me. I knew Allen Ginsberg was a dear friend and mentor of David's, and that's how David was to me. And then just the lineage of Walt Whitman being such an inspiration to Ginsberg. So it felt like a very special experience. I do have a couple more events. I don't know if you want to hear about them or not. Okay. Well, there's one more, and this one was so different than the other ones. It's called Poetry on Demand. This was in 2012. It was at the Grand Rapids Art Museum and also organized by Greg Bliss. This was the year of the Rauschenberg exhibit, and he invited poets to come in and pick a piece from the exhibit and write a poem based on it, which was a challenge for me, something I'd never done before. But I enjoyed it. And there was one night during the exhibit where the poet could stand next to their piece of work. And as people were coming through and looking at the paintings, you could ask them if they wanted to hear your poem based on it. And when I read, I'm very soft-spoken, mostly because I'm nervous. And there's no mic in this situation. So for people to hear me, I had to beckon them forward. And it felt very intimate in this great big space to have strangers come together and huddle around to share in that experience, to hear something while they were looking at the painting it was inspired by, and maybe giving them a different way to look at it. And I just thought it was very beautiful to get people together that didn't know one another to share in an experience.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What else?
Those are the main things that I was a part of. I have tried to read at the Drunken Retort, but my style doesn't really fit well. They're more spoken word and very like demonstrative and performative, and I'm just not. My work's a little quieter, so I did try because I wanted to try to be a part of it, but and I've gone and enjoyed it, but I've definitely not read it again. I had submitted a couple of times, but one year I got selected second place for a poem called Iris. So and that was the year of the 50th celebration. So that felt pretty great too. I think that was 2018. 2018. And so I got up and read again. At this point, I was a little bit better at it. But I loved all of the age categories. I loved hearing the young people's work, all the way from young to college and older, and to hear all of the readings and know that these kids really had this outlet and probably had some encouragement to be able to get there. And then to see all the loved ones and friends and even strangers in the audience all there to share in that experience. And I do remember at the end, a photographer asking all of the people that placed to get together for a group picture. And that was so much fun. Everyone was so talkative with each other and so encouraging. And it just felt like this little love puddle. Like it was a great experience. So this is called Iris. I have surrendered to finding my strength in vulnerability, like watching an iris's color intensify with tears, or the visibility of a bird's nest clear in a dying tree. It felt wonderful that there were people that had that much faith in my work. I would say that was the big thing. It definitely gave me more confidence, and did introduce me to some other poets in town. And just to see that it wasn't a competition, it was camaraderie. I definitely think bringing people together, showing that there is another outlet for maybe emotion or things that strike you that anyone can write. Learning about others through their writing, maybe finding things you can relate to and feeling like you're not alone. Coming at things from different perspectives. I think it definitely can teach empathy, which is a beautiful thing, and compassion. I think it's changed since I've been there last, but I tend to find like little holes in the wall. But their Common Ground Coffee House was the last time I was there. It was very simple. It was $1.25 for a cup of coffee. You could grab a donut. You could go sit in a comfy couch surrounded by books that people like, the share libraries, lend one, give one sort of thing. And I did a lot of writing and editing there, actually. So I liked that place. The cottage, when I was in school at CC, I would go to the cottage and write before my creative writing classes because I had time. So I spent a lot of time there too in college. I would say I don't spend as much time there as I would like to, but the art museum, I think there's something very peaceful about it. And another way to create and possibly find inspiration. After I did that Rauschenberg exhibit, I would take headphones with me into the museum and just walk around and look at the art and write a little bit and see if I could come up with something. And that was something I never thought I would do, but that became a special place for me too. I would say, to be honest, I don't feel like I'm a very well-known poet in Grand Rapids. I think most of the readings and things I've done have been in earlier years. The events that I mentioned and Drunken Retort, and also some smaller venues too. There was one where it was more of like a little punk venue, and a friend of mine wanted to put out her own zine, and some other friends displayed their artwork for sale. And it was in this little basement, and it was a handful of writers, all different levels, all different styles that she put together in this scene. And same thing, a lot of camaraderie, and something a lot more intimate than a lot of the things that I've tried to read in before. And that felt really great. Don't be scared. Don't judge yourself too harshly. It's not about being better than someone else. It's not about comparing what you're doing to someone else. Just take what you're feeling or what you're experiencing and write it out. And try to do it as honestly as you can. Poetry for me is about sharing. It's about healing. I think those are the two big ones. This one is titled Mac. After you died, I dreamed I had only palms. I stared at stubs healed over, eyes widening as my phantom fingers did. I remember you, towering Alaskan, poppy orange red hair, playing basketball in the chunky boots you showed up in. All of us addicts herded outdoors, faces rosying in a rare, bright Pacific Northwest November day. I remember you, where water rivulets crack ice, and wonder how much of your barefoot body was blue when they dragged it from the river. And that was written on 1/26/16. And then the last I brought is called Benediction. Amidst cold, isolated, early nightfalls, atop frozen branches, birds sing benediction. I would say working with David Cope. That third year, we came up with a course, just the two of us, an independent study to help put my first manuscript together. And we had some poems already written and then continued to write, and he helped me through the editing process and then the process of finding what order you wanted to be everything to be in, to see if you could find an arc or something that would make it more powerful and more cohesive. And it became he became an ally, basically, and a mentor after that, and a dear friend. And I actually have a book coming out next month. The manuscript, we titled it Small Gestures. And the book that I have been working on since then, and then adding on as I get older, we kept the title Small Gestures. And same thing, he's been with me every step of the way. So it got picked up by Dumpster Fire Press, and it should be coming out next month, so April 2022. I believe, some of the poems started in my early 20s, and I'm 40 now, so there's been a lot of time. And I'm hoping that as I mature, that you can kind of see the poetry mature as well. I definitely deal with it. It started, like I said before, with experiences with strangers, or just things that I saw with strangers that struck me. And there was definitely some sexual harassment involved in those experiences that I try to write honestly about. There's also dealing with my bipolar disorder and addiction and institution, and not just my experiences with that, but also looking at the people that I was in the institution with. And I feel like as I started to grow and heal from these experiences, you can start to find that healing in my poetry. And some of the healing definitely comes in the form of a sexual awakening. And it was just a beautiful process for me to hang on to the things I wrote when I was younger, and make it kind of a long run instead of putting a book together very quickly. I try to make it a point when I write to be courageous, sorry, and very forthright and very honest. I almost feel that if you're not, what's the point? And I hope that comes across. It was a very difficult poem for me to write, but I think maybe it's why it does hold that power for me. There's one called New Lovers. It experiences some experiences with an unhealthy relationship and being taken advantage of, and physical illness and addiction. And I feel like I draw on all the things that I was feeling, but try to put them in a way that doesn't just explain, but describes with different senses. I do, there's one, I can look it up, that there's a couple in, thank you, in the passages of being with the other people in the mental institution, where I feel like I may have caught something. This is called White. She was in her late 60s, skin as pale as her white hair. Her arms, wrist, hands were wrapped in a new white bandage every morning group meeting. When asked what her goal was for the day, she always gave the same answer. Her lips barely moving, eyes barely open, completely still, she answered almost inaudibly, "To not cut myself." During visiting hours, her husband would sit next to her, look to find a patch of unbandaged skin, rest his hand there, stare straight ahead, and share her silence. So this is called Our Blood. She spoke of her previous year as smelling sour, like something used past its date, and her mother now staying with her from Beijing. She unearthed my father, the marine scent of fish gutted over spread newspaper, and my grandfather's bubbling marinara. She said she now smelled of beef, wafting hands to nose as if over a stovetop, memories warming our blood. I would honestly say taking time to be patient with myself. Therapy has helped a lot. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I went to a 28-day inpatient rehab, and that completely changed my life. That I met some people there that it was an amazing experience, in that you go in and you see everyone as they come in, and they're just not there. They're just washed down versions of themselves, and I'm included in that. And then throughout those 30 days, you see the real person come out, and you see a blossoming start to happen, and you start to feel that within yourself. And I think that experience really changed me, and was able to help me heal and maybe soften a little bit, and in that healing and softening, I could see my writing start to change. And definitely working with a therapist and finding peace in yoga has helped a lot too. I'm learning how to manage anxiety and stress, and I've been sober, so I was very drunk for 10 years or more, and when you become sober again, you almost have to relearn emotions because you were numb all the time. So I remember being in the grocery store, and I was like, God, what is happening right now? Like, what is this feeling? Like, I was like, I'm frustrated. Like, I'm frustrated. Like, how did I not know that I was frustrated? And I remember the first time I felt joy. Um, I was coming back from an orchard in the fall with my mom and my young niece and two of her friends, and the trees were absolutely gorgeous, and the windows were down, and a song came on the radio that all the children knew. They all started singing along, and I just started bawling. And I was just like, my mom's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm so happy right now." So I think learning to take care of myself and keeping up with those things has definitely helped my writing mature. I'm considering going back to school and finishing a social work degree. Yeah, I would like to work with, I know there are so many branches you can go into, but I would like to work with addicts.